pick out someone. That's what they do with it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So that wasn't Ben's plan.
No, well, you had the right idea. It's too bad they didn't listen. But I know that feeling. So, majority isn't always right.
They're actually looking at undoing that.
Oh, so they're going to do it soon. Yeah. Well, okay, as far as, as far as discretion, I always am concerned about this because judges have such discretion. And tell me how you feel about that as far as legislation. Are you happy with how it is now, or do you have some idea of how you'd like to see that change?
To the extent that there are mandatory minimums for district court misdemeanors and concurrent felonies, I think that's not so well thought out. Let me preface my answer by saying the law is the law, and if I'm fortunate enough to make consent to follow the law, that's taken very seriously by the law. But I think from a political standpoint, if one were able to address the issue from the beginning, mandatory minimums give an awful lot of discretion to players on the law enforcement side. Both the police and the street are completely unfettered discretion, and the ADAs, who are in the district court, are often, at the beginning of their career, younger people. And it gives the charging ADA a tremendous amount of discretion as to whether, for instance, to break down a school zone case, virtually everything in East Boston and Boston is a school zone, whether to break that down and take the school zone out. So that decision as to whether or not someone can go to jail is really left in the hands of the police and then the prosecutor, and it's taking it away from the one person who I think in the courtroom ought to be impartial and wise and mature and a little more worldly to judge.
Well, one of the things I look for, and I was impressed because we had the same, I'm the same wavelength, is when you talk about, the discretion to promote criminal rehabilitation, protection society, and deterrence of other criminals. And you believe, if I'm misquoting you, that you feel protecting the community is paramount to all of those that I mentioned. And I think that's, with what's happening right here in Boston every day that you're reading the newspaper, I think that is very important in to protect the community when a offender is released from custody, so that we're safeguarded and that person has some safety nets too, So thank you. I really don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you? I'm interested in what your take is on the role of the court in relationship to addressing issues of substance abuse when offenders present those kinds of issues. And are there any drug courts that you've been involved in? Are there any in the bailiwick of your area of practice?
There are, and I probably am swinging the tide a bit when I say that I think the very best district in municipal court judges like Oklahoma can do those sorts of things in the regular criminal session with good probation departments, and you don't need specialized breakout drug courts. To the extent there's a special session, that's fine. But to have special sessions outside of the community, I think, is probably not the most effective way to deal with it. As you correctly point out, there are so many problems that come before the district court that are substance abuse related, and it is a huge part of what the probation department has to deal with. I believe in probation. I think keeping people responsible for a long period of time, a longer period of time than you could ever incarcerate them for the district court, makes a great deal of sense when you're dealing with substance abuse. Because if you can solve or at least mitigate the substance abuse problem, you can solve or at least mitigate the criminal behavior that results from it.
Have you ever attended or observed the session of the drug court?
I have.
Do you have any concerns about the relationship between the court and probation departments today in terms of the probation department being less, having a less relationship with the court in terms of what the judge wants to do and policies that might be at odds that are established by the probation department? Do you have any concerns about your ability to be in charge of customizing probation in the way that you think is best?
I don't, but I think there is some room for improvement in the way that the probation infrastructure has been separated from, administratively separated from the control of the judge in the district court. I understand the reasons for that and the sense of why that needed to be done on the political level, but the best courts work hand in hand with their probation departments, and the best judges get their probation departments to follow the law. And the best probation departments actively go online programs to present to the judges alternatives in cases. And
what might you think your response would be if you say, well, I'm going to put so-and-so on probation, but I'm going to order drug testing for 3 years worth of probation, and your PO stands up and says, sorry, our policy is that we only drug test for 90 days.
I think the judge gets to set terms of probation, and absent some SJC decision taking that discretion away from the judge, it would be drug testing for whatever period the judge, unfortunately, has to do whatever the judge is.
Well, I wish you well. You're about to embark on a very exciting experience in your legal career. I remember when I was sworn in 1990, I got a letter from Chief Justice Fiandaca, and he said, welcome to the third independent branch of government. And it was something that was really, it captured me about that. And you're about to enter the third independent branch of government. And you'll see a lot of things in there that go on, and I just sort of alluded to a couple of them. It's a tough role to be a judge, because internally there's a lot of things that come your way that sort of necessitate your fortitude, your sense of independence, your sense of sovereignty, but at the same time, you're politically delicate, and so as well. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Real quick, just some comments that you made, Councilman Lang again. Just a couple of questions. Is there a general frustration on the part of some defense attorneys in regards to mandatory minimum sentencing and so forth? Is that more of that control has been taken away from the police and the prosecutors and put into the hands of the judge?
I wouldn't characterize it that way, Counselor. What I would say, though, is, we give such tremendous discretion to law enforcement officers in the street, and that's by necessity. There's no way around it. You just have to, I think. And that's as it should be. And then the prosecutor has tremendous discretion as to what charges are bringing. It's solely prerogative of the executive branch. It seems to me that when it comes down to sentencing, though, when it comes down to whether somebody goes to jail or gets probation, that really ought to be something that, from a political standpoint, ought to be something that the judge does as the impartial member of the third co-equal branch of government, and not part of the executive or law enforcement function. And I think what mandatory minimums do is sometimes take that discretion away from the judge and bring it back down to the law enforcement level. They have tremendous discretion anyway. There's no getting away from it. There shouldn't be any getting away from it. But that little piece of whether the defendant illegally goes to jail under probation, I think, truthfully and ideally belongs with the impartial and wise and very focused judge and judge.
How do you handle that when you have your time? You're sitting up on that bench there. Is there a frustration that carries over from the judiciary to the prosecutor and the police in a situation like that? I mean, basically, having spent my whole career in law enforcement myself and working a lot with prosecutors and defense attorneys, we're all under the gun in those situations to go out there and produce and do our jobs and do it the best way we possibly can. And sometimes you hit that wall of frustration, and everybody gets frustrated on both sides of the time. You're going into this thing, I'm curious if already coming from the defense side, I mean, to be honest with you, you're certainly